I try and keep things sort of moving along so people who come in again and again and again don't get the same stuff. But what we're dealing with tonight is important because it's the banking. Is everyone aware of the Lawful Bank? Okay, we're going to find this quite interesting because is anyone in this room familiar with the Lawful Bank? Okay, so you've got an idea of what we're going on this one. I'm going to explain the Lawful Bank tonight, and some of you are going to leave with your jaws open. Okay, because if we can perfect this, if we can get this up and running, the Lawful Bank, we take back control of our country. The issue with the Lawful Bank is we need a critical mass of people. Once we've got the critical mass of people, I'm going to show you what we can actually do with it. But what I want to do is run through, what we do is we put these screens up, and I just basically read through screens because this goes on the internet, okay, and we're dealing with thousands of people as a consequence of these reports. So if it's a bit laboured and a bit stunted because of me reading, well, that's the way it is, I apologise, but we get through it anyway, okay. Alright, the British Constitution Group believe that we, the British people, have a right to govern ourselves and not be governed by an amalgam of the foreign political elite and the British traitors. And of course, we're talking about the politicians in the House of Parliament who have transferred our national sovereignty to Brussels without our permission, without our consent. That's against the Constitution, it's against the law. Our right to self-determination is guaranteed by our Constitution, which Queen Elizabeth swore at her coronation oath to uphold and protect. In support of which all MPs have sworn an oath of allegiance to Her Majesty, and as a direct consequence that allegiance is to us, because the supremacy of the country belongs to the people. Not the Queen and not the politicians, it's the people's supremacy. Why then do we now find ourselves being governed by traitors and a monarch who has failed in her primary duty? The issue is, has the Queen failed because she's under duress, or is she part of it all? We don't know. Our assumption must be that she's under duress. That's the assumption that we make. The benefit of the doubt, as it were. Because it's we, and this is the point, why do we find ourselves being governed by a monarch and traitors in Parliament? It's because we have failed to stand up for our sovereign right of self-governance, and it is we who have allowed the duplicitous politicians, the elite, to get away with treason. That's a statement of fact. We have allowed them to do so. And who keeps voting them in? We do. They're all sponsored by a mishmash of the ignorant, weak and pathetic serving in the police, the judiciary and the civil service. Even if they know what's going on, they're not inclined to do anything about it. That's wrong. The majority of whom are interested in protecting their generous salaries and their gold-plated pensions, and who simply do not want to rock the boat. That's their position. They probably do know what's going on, pretty convinced in my own mind they do know what's going on, but they're inclined to stay quiet because they're all right, Jack. Okay? Well, we've got news for them. We're going to sink that boat, and if they don't abandon ship and join us, then we're going to find them, they're going to find themselves and their salaries and their pensions on the bottom of the sea of betrayal, and good riddance to the lot. Our lifeboat is alternative governance. Our aim is to progress towards our own system of self-governance that will work for the best interest of the people and not the best interest of a wealthy elite. Throughout history, the wealthy have controlled things, and they have people like us running around like blue arse, you know what it is, and then getting all the benefit, okay? Our approach is revolutionary, but it's not a revolution. We are rebelling against the establishment by taking lawful and principled stand justified by our Constitution and the rule of law. We are taking matters into our own hands because the ruling elite have failed to look after our interest, because instead they've been looking after their own, to our detriment. The actions of the ruling elite represent a breathtaking betrayal of the British people, aided and abetted by an assortment of co-conspirators, the ignorant, complacent, and a large contingent of I'm all right, Jack practitioners. Alternative government is not a single action, it's a process through which we bring about change. That will impact on our lives and the lives of our family, our friends, and in a positive way. If we do not bring about change, then our lives are about to get worse, with yet more taxes and even less freedom. And I'm referring, of course, to the transfer of controls across the United Nations and the global warming taxes that they're introducing progressively as of now. To bring about change, we must engage. We must do something. We must do something. There's lots of things that we can do. Turning up to meetings like this is the first thing. Educating ourselves is the second. Talking to our friends and family is the third. We can hand out leaflets or papers. That's the fourth. There's lots of small things that we can do. We do not have to march on Parliament. We do not have to do a whole range of things which are inconvenient and causes a great deal of loss of time, etc. There's small things that we can do. What I'm proposing tonight is that each and every one of you absorb what we're talking about, read the Lawful Bank, and with that in mind, go and talk to people, because if we get this off the ground in a reasonable time frame, I promise you it will change our lives, and very significantly. We have been dragged into a financial abyss which the ruling elite have determined can only be solved by redundancies and more tax, spelling mistake there. But of course, it won't be for them. There won't be redundancies in the House of Parliament. There won't be more taxes for the political elite, will it? But there is another way, and one that does not require a reduction of our essential services, but nevertheless it is radical. One essential element required in order to bring about alternative governance is our own monetary system, through which we can fund our own requirements. There is no need for redundancies or more taxation. In fact, to the contrary. With an alternative monetary system, we can employ more nurses, more teachers, and more police constables, and pay less taxes. That's a statement of fact, and this is the point that we're exposing. If we take back control of our own monetary supply, there is no shortage of money. And because there's no shortage of money, we don't need any taxes, additional taxes. TAMS. TAMS is short for the Alternative Monetary System. This is one part of alternative governance. Other parts of alternative governance are, of course, taking control of our own councils, taking control of our own judiciary, our own peace officers, our own vehicle license registration, and our own land registry. All of these work in parallel with their system, but they pass back into the hands of control of the people. Okay? Right, what is TAMS? I'm going to read each one of these out and explain it where it is necessary, and the idea is by the end of it you should have an understanding, a basic understanding of how it works, at which point I'm inviting anyone to ask questions. If a lot of it goes over your head, that's anticipated, because it's quite complicated, and a lot of people are still struggling with the basics. Where does money come from? And what I propose is we can have a few questions and answers vis-a-vis where does money come from, and hopefully that will explain it. Right. TAMS is owned entirely by the user members. So when you join up the Lawful Bank, it's lawfulbank.com, you become a member and a user. Members join via independent branches. That means that any individual and 5 colleagues can set up a branch. And we're hoping people all over the country will start setting up the branches. It's a money-making opportunity because it's a profit centre. A bank, a branch is a money-making centre. So inviting people to get involved in their own branch and then go out and get their members and offer loans and mortgages, etc., to individuals from which they will earn a commission. The difference between getting a loan from our banking system and the main banking system is ours are interest-free loans, subject to a fee. Okay. Our branches are operating in accordance with the Constitution, as agreed by members. Each member, one vote. The Constitution cannot be changed or provisions added unless there's a vote by a 70% majority. So it's set in stone. To get a 70% majority is quite difficult. But if people are passionate about change, then they need to rally the troops and make change. We'd like it to be stable and continuous for as long as possible. Members can set up their own branches subject to certain criteria. Each branch would have to have security in place, so people coming to you as potentially a branch of a bank need to know that it's a credible and secure place to do business. Branches, via its members, elect a regional representatives to sit on an advisory committee. So that means each branch with its members can elect an individual who can come and sit on the committee. So it's from the bottom up, not from the top down. The advisory committee makes recommendations for members to vote on, meeting every 6 months. So the committee gets together, and if they think there's something that needs to be done, changed, provided for, they will come up with a recommendation. They will pass that back to the members, who will vote yea or nay. Okay? The advisory committee employs the managers to run TAMS in strict accordance with the Constitution, as agreed by members. So these people will invite applications for people to actually apply for the job to run TAMS. So a small management group of about 12 people who will run the software in accordance with the Constitution. So these are your classic directors of a company, okay? And where directors make decisions to run a company, in this case, we've got a committee that put forward recommendations, passed back down to the members, and the members vote on them, and then the managers or the directors of the business will actually run it in accordance with the Constitution and the rule of law. Each branch has its own managers, stroke owners representing its members. Members can change branches at any time. So if you've got a branch, and if it's got, say, 6 directors, owners of that branch, and they're providing a function for its members, for its branch members, and the members aren't happy, all they need to do is change branch. And if a branch isn't doing a good job, it will lose its members and it won't make any money and it will close. If a branch closes, and they do, they will fail and prosper on their own merits. If they fail, all the money in the branches or in that system is 100% guaranteed. And I'll explain how that works later on. So really a branch is about providing a service. They actually don't hold funds. What they do is they provide the mechanism by which you can get your mortgage, your loans, etc. Branches form themselves into regions. So as the system grows and we get more and more branches, what we would expect is for a number of branches would come together and create a region, decide amongst themselves who's going to be the representative for the committee, because the committee will always be just 100 people, a committee of 100 individuals, otherwise nothing gets done. Even that's going to be hard enough. A region might consist of several hundred branches. Branches will succeed and or fail on their own merits. Branches do not take deposits or hold money. They act only as a service provider to provide loans, mortgages and bonded-only insurance. Bonded-only insurance means there are no outside people making any profit. All the money that comes from the insurance, from premiums, etc., goes back in the pot. A bonded insurance is you put £500 down, and then you pay £100 a year for your premium. If you don't have an accident, your £500 sits there, but your premium per annum is £100. If you have an accident, your £500 bond goes. If you have an accident for £2,000, the differential is paid from the premiums. That's what the premiums are for. People have lots of accidents, would find themselves with a bond of 1,000, then a bond of 2,000, and it would drive them out. So people are inclined to be more careful when they're actually paying that bond. They're more careful to protect an insurance premium of £100 a year. Okay, it's open to everyone, even young people. So the writing is on the wall. If you have a lot of accidents, it could cost you a great deal of money through our system, and you want to use their system. And that's what we'd like, okay? Mortgages are provided on the basis of a fee only. A fee at this point in time will be about 10%. Well, obviously we'll come to that. Branches earn commission providing these services. Each branch nominates its own network of retail outlets that act as cash deposit and withdrawal points. So we will have a whole range of retailers who will actually be able to provide money. You'll be able to go into a flower shop, go into your sweet shop, go into your whatever shop, and with a card, they will have a card reader, and you'll be able to give them the card and deposit £100, or give them the card and take £100 out from your bank account. So we're actually drawing on their cash reserves, on their float to act as a bank. Now, because there's lots of them, it won't increase the amount of money they're carrying. So the security issue is something that we're dealing with, but because of the security, not here. Okay, I'm sure you understand that. So retailers will provide the branches themselves. As far as the services of the bank, they'll be done with the branches. So there'll be a place to do your paperwork, your mortgage, etc. And for nominal cash deposits and withdrawal, you just use your local retailer. Now, the position at the moment is that we do have an ability to access ATM machines. We're working on that, which will be enormously beneficial as well. But it's not a necessity. It's not an absolute necessity. But we will be looking at supplying that service. So instead of going to a local bank to put your money in, take your money out, you go to a local retailer. Every time you have a transaction, the retailer will earn £1. So at the end of the day, a retailer might get an extra £20 a day, it might be an extra £100 a week. For small retailers, that's a lot of money, and that makes a big difference, okay? So we're taking the bank's profits into local retail community. Retailers must account for funds, branches oversee this function. So as you've got money coming in and out of each branch, they have to account for the money that's been deposited or drawn each day, and that is actually then overseen by each branch. They have their own retailers, and the branch makes sure that they're actually overseeing that. Branches provide loans and mortgages interest-free, but subject to a fee of 10%, subject to review. It might go down, it won't go more than 10%, but it's more inclined to come down. But we review the amount in accordance with what's required to keep the banks in a reasonably healthy position. The fee must be paid up front and in cash. TAMS makes use of fractional reserve banking, which means it creates digital money equal to 10 times its cash deposit. Now, I have to explain what happens in the real world. When you go into a bank and you put £1,000 cash into their system, they create 10 times the amount of digital credit there and then, and they then lend that out. So what in effect happens is you, as a depositor, provide them with the provision to create credit, money out of nothing, and lend it out. The ratio of 10 to 1, I'm actually sure it's a lot higher than that. You know, some people have reported it's 80 or 90 times, but for this presentation, we're just assuming it's 10. So if you deposit £1,000 in the bank, they lend £10,000 out to whoever wants to borrow at interest. And bear in mind, they didn't have £10,000, and they've only got someone else's money. That's how banking actually works. We will do exactly the same thing. We will use the fractional reserve system, but when you put £1,000 into our bank, we will give you £10,000 worth of credit. And what that means is that you will have positive liquidity to spend within our system. So the liquidity for our system comes from you bringing their cash, and I refer to them and their money, of course, the norm in banking system. But if you bring their money to our system, we give you liquidity. Okay? If you put £1,000 in their system, you give them liquidity. So that's why it's a people's bank as opposed to a banker's bank. That's a subtle difference, but it's a very, very important difference. And it's a very powerful argument why people should be bringing as much cash over to our system as theirs. Okay? Now, so for every pound a member deposits, TAMS script £10 of digital credit which belongs to the depositor to use and to make payments within our system. You can only make payments within our system. So if I have a bank account, right, if I set up a bank, I can create right now £100,000. And I can credit your account with £100,000. The rule is, one, if you want to spend it, you can only spend it with somebody who has a bank account with me, yeah? So you can rush down the road and say to the guy, I'm going to buy your flat for £100,000. Terms and conditions are, when I give you this cheque, you can only deposit it in my bank. So when you buy the flat from Jake, he rushes down to me and he opens a bank account with me, and all I do is on the computer go diddly-diddy, transfer the money over. And of course, when you open the bank account with me, the terms and conditions are you can only spend the money with someone who has a bank account with me. So if you go and buy a flash car from Ian, right, give him a cheque, he's going to come down and open a bank account with me, and all I'm going to go is diddly-diddy, transfer the money over. That's how you create money out of nothing. It's just a simple circle. And because all the banks are linked together, they can create as much money as they want, and that's what they do. And they give the money to their friends, the corporations, who buy out the small businesses, and who wreck things for their benefit. And that's why the corporations are getting bigger and bigger and bigger. There's no limit on the amount of money the banks can supply them. And what the banks do is, because they make money on the interest on money they don't lend, and they like earning money, the banks lend it out willy-nilly to anybody, and that's where the problem rises. It rises because it's bad lending. Now, fractional reserve banking, people criticise it because they're creating money out of nothing. That's not a problem. Creating money out of nothing is actually beneficial. And the ratio of 10 to 1 or 20 to 1 or 50 to 1 is not relevant. It's not negative. What is important is the interest that's attached. Because in a society, for example, right, if I said this society has all of the products it needs, it has the food, the clothing, the housing, etc., it has the petrol. In our society, if we all have that, it means we can exchange it between us. And what we could then do is we could issue promissory notes, give ourselves all money, which we can trade to represent the product that we've got. So for example, if I have woolly sweaters, and I want to sell my woolly sweaters in the winter, right, and you guys are all buying them, along comes the summer, and I want to sell them in the summer, I'm not going to be making any sales. So I will then have to buy my products in on credit or promissory notes. I will say to people, well, you give me the food, and when I've got my sweater sold, I will actually then pay you the money. So what I'm going to give you is an IOU. I promise to pay. That's money. That's all it is. Now, when somebody in the winter comes back to me and they don't have the lettuce because it's the winter, but I've got woolen sweaters, there's that promissory note which comes back to me, so I'm now exchanging my sweaters for the promissory note as opposed to letters. So that's what money is for. Money is designed to keep a record of who owes who. If you wanted to remove all money, all you need to do is keep a series of ledgers. You know, Roger owes Simon, Simon owes John, Mark, or whoever. And so money is a very convenient way of keeping a record of those transactions because they're in your back pocket. Okay, so that's what money does. It's only a means of trade. People think money has value. It has no value. And that's the mistake that we made, and also that's what the banks want us to think. The banks want us to think that money is worth something. It's not. It's worth having, but only in terms of being able to exchange for the commodities we want. Ultimately, we don't want the money, we want the big house, the big car, and the holiday abroad. Okay? So that's what money's for. Again, the important thing about creating positive liquidity is it's not a loan, you don't have to pay it back, it's yours, you keep it, but you spend it. And by spending it, you create employment and you actually get the economy moving around. Because you're getting a ratio of 10 to 1, it encourages the importation of their money into our system. Imagine this, imagine that you bring £1,000 into our system and that gives you £10,000 worth of credit and you're able to buy a nice car for £10,000 from within our system from another member. What are you going to do? You're going to go and get another £1,000 from their system and bring it in, right? And if you then are able to buy a commodity, and remember, the leap of faith is the assumption has always got to be that you're able to spend the money within the system. So that's where the critical mass of people comes in. Once we've got enough people on board, and once people realise the importance of accepting payment through our system, it will just take off. And you'll see progressively what's going to happen, because there's a little bit of a trick here, because if I brought £1,000 into the system, and if I've just bought myself a nice car for £10,000, I'm going to say, well, why don't I sell it outside the system and get £10,000 for it? Because then I can bring £10,000 into the system and get £100,000 worth of credit. Now think about that. Now some people are going to pick up this very quickly. And some people actually say that that's the fault in the system, and in fact that is the biggest benefit of the system, because people are going to be rushing around bringing money from their system to our system as fast as they can hold it.
It's a transfer of wealth, isn't it?
It's a transfer of wealth. But not only is it a transfer of wealth, it's a transfer of assets. Because as our money, as their money is coming into our system, we're also bringing products in, okay? Because we're starting to trade amongst ourselves. So there's a transfer of assets, and I'll explain further how it works with regards to commodities such as oil, gas, etc. Okay, so that bit people need to work on sometimes. They need to get their heads around how does that actually work. One of the realities of the situation is as people start to realise what's going on, people are going to be reluctant outside the system to actually sell to someone in the system. So there's going to be a depression of the prices outside, but a maintenance of the prices inside. Okay, so I'm not going to go into great details, but there's a levelling that happens, and a natural levelling. As people wake up, what people are going to do is they're going to say, I'm going to get in the system. I want part of the action, and that's exactly what it's designed to do. So there's a big incentive built in here. When we receive their money, for example, excuse me a minute, gents. When we receive their money, £20, we retire it. We put it in a safe somewhere, it goes, disappears. And we replace it with one of our own £20 notes. They'll be called sovereign pounds, that's what we've named at the moment. That means that at any time we give that sovereign pound or sovereign £20 note to a retailer, they are assured that we can replace it at any time. That's designed to encourage them to use it in the community. So those people who don't have confidence in our sovereign pounds, they can bring them to us and they can ask for a proper pound or a real pound, whatever you want to call it, and we say that's fine, we can do that because we've already retired one. So £20 is worth £20 because we can guarantee it. That's designed to bring credibility to our notes, which will bring credibility to our system because people will see it's actually working. And eventually people know that they can trade our pound notes wherever they want and know that it's guaranteed, because it will be guaranteed. Okay? Digital credit created in our system can only be spent in our system, which we mentioned. We will create escrow accounts in the names of utility companies, councils and banks. Now you're going to like this bit, okay? Now, somewhere down the line, without our permission, we've got a whole pile of foreign companies that have taken control of our gas, electricity, our water, etc. I believe that was unlawful. We have got rain falling from the heavens on our ground, and we're getting charged by a Spanish company. What's that about? Okay, and we're being ripped off left, right, and centre. We want to take back control of our oil, our water, our gas, and our utilities for our benefit, not the benefit of foreign corporations, not the benefit for corporations, full stop. It's a basic need. Heat, lighting, water are a basic need. We should not be paying profit for them. Now that is a reality of life, because one of the most important aspects of poverty in this country is people can't afford their electricity, their gas. Why are we being committed to paying profits on these? Fundamentally wrong. There's lots of ways that companies can make profits, providing things which people can buy as a requirement as opposed to a need. And so profits on the basic elements of life should be definitely not allowed, okay? An escrow account is that you actually transfer the money from your bank account into a bank account on behalf of somebody else, which they can collect subject to the terms and conditions that you attach to the escrow account. So for example, let's take the gas companies. Now, I'm not sure it's there on the next page over, but I'm going to tell you now, and I've repeated this fine. So we will have a bank account for United Utilities, we'll have a bank account for electricity companies, we'll have a bank account for the gas companies, we'll have a bank account for the councils, and there's provision for others as well. But let's stick with those basic accounts now. So you get a bill for £500 from an electricity company. What you do is you send money from your bank account, your digital account with us, to their escrow account. It will be recorded because you're sending it according to your billing instructions, etc. And we will advise the electricity company that their bill has been paid. So, how much money will it cost you to create £500 worth of credit in our bank account? 50 quid. So your electricity bill is going to cost you £50 as opposed to £500. Yeah? Now, what they're going to say is, hang on a minute, you've just made the money out of nothing. And we'll say, well, that's what you do. And that's exactly what we do. Right. Now, well, with the numbers behind us, it's just as easy as that. Now, the first thing they're going to say is, can you prove it? We'll say, yes, there's my statement. And they say, well, we don't accept that, we'll take you to court. And we'll say, that's fine, and we will have our own solicitors who will defend all of our members in the court. But they'll be in our common law courts. Because we do not accept their courts, because they're not common law courts. And the Bill of Rights says the only courts that have validity in this country are common law courts. And possibly, not many of you know, but actually our common law courts have actually been expunged from this country. We're now dealing through administrative courts, which are unlawful. So we'll say, yeah, we'll see you in court, but we'll see you in our court, our common law courts. So we challenge them on front. Now, if they want to go to their courts, right, and we've got 1 million members, and 1 million members aren't paying their bill, we'll keep them in there till 2099, right? So we can actually break them through the volume of people doing this. This is where the critical mass is so essential. Can we do it? Piece of cake. This is not difficult. All we need is the numbers. And that's why it's important to talk to people about the Lawful Bank, how it works, what it does, how it functions, the way it functions, those simple mechanisms. And it's now, you're going to go out there and people say, oh, it'll never happen. You know, you're going to get the doomsayers. But the positive people amongst us can make this thing work, okay? Right. So, our members can thus pay utility bills, loans and mortgages, all right, didn't mention this, but mortgages as well. We set up escrow accounts in all the bank accounts, and when you pay your mortgage through our system, and we will advise them their bill's been paid. And again, if they say, well, you're just making money out of nothing, we'll say, that's what you do. What's good enough for goose is good enough for gander, okay? The money will be available to utility companies, and we will say to the utility companies, what's the problem? You can spend this money, you can spend it with your own employees. Because most of your employees are going to want to join our system because it benefits them. And I'll demonstrate why it benefits them in a moment. If they, as I say, if they claim that it's just made up, our money is made up, we will counter the facts, so is theirs. We will defend all of our members in court on their behalf, but we'll only agree to our common law courts. When members sign up to TAMS through a branch of their choice, currently it's only the Lawful Bank exists as a branch, they will be asked to make a pledge of £100. This is an important part of the underlying value of our system. This pledge is signed and witnessed and filed with the branch. This is a promise to pay. What's money? It's a promise to pay. Yeah? So you are making, each member is pledging £100 to the system. Let's be positive. If we get 1 million people signed up, every single one of those individuals will be promising to pay. We'll be giving a pledge for £100. That means that we actually have the potential capital value of the system of £100 million. Do the banks have that? No. So we've got positive liquidity. Theirs is just debt. This is all debt. Right? It is envisioned that the pledges will never be called upon. I don't see an occasion where we'd actually come up with £100. In fact, the motivation is towards never having to do so because that provides a security. So all you do is you pledge £100, but it's a contract. It is a contract. And when you sign that, that is a promise to pay. It has to do so. If you can't pay cash, if you ever asked to pay the cash, then you would be required to work those hours to actually, that's what it's all about, isn't it? Ultimately, all value comes from man hours. It's about the ability, no product on this planet is worth anything until man hours have been applied to it. So it's product multiplied by man hours equals value, okay? It is also a condition of membership that all members agree to the jurisdiction of our own common courts. So we're passing control from them to us. We're taking control of the utility companies because what's happening is that utility companies are being forced through escrow accounts to use our system. And there's no good reason why they shouldn't. And all their employees are going to be saying, well, we want to use this system. We want to be paid in this system because this system is good. Okay? And we're going to say as soon as a single member of employee of that company is actually a member of our bank, we'll say you've got no good cause because you can pay them. And why wouldn't you be a member of our bank if we can give you £1,000 when you deposit 100? So you see what's happening here? So the psychology of what's going on is we're actually tempting people to join our bank because there's a benefit. And the reason that we can offer them a benefit is because the benefits are the ones that the banks take for themselves. We're now distributing equally to the people. We'll have our own judiciary. We'll have our own bailiffs. We'll have our own peace officers. We'll have our own land registry and our own vehicle registration, all funded through our monetary system. Okay? If you make your own money, you can employ all these people and pay them. It's the same with nurses, police and everything else. Once you have your own monetary system in place, you can do anything you want because you can create the money to pay for the services that you need. This business at the moment that the politicians are going on about is a shortage of money is an outright lie. There is no shortage of money. It's a control mechanism. Okay? These redundancies are just a means of controlling people, scaring people, keeping people down. If you have full employment and everyone's getting a lovely salary, no one's scared of anything and they lose control. That's all this is all about. It's just about controlling people. So all of these are available to us. And listen to this very important point. If you have your own land registry, right, that means you actually only put on that registry the mortgages that you acknowledge. Now what we know is the mortgages that were supplied when we bought our homes were based on the money being created out of nothing and lent to us by the banks. Okay, so it's phony. So we say, well, if you can do it, so can we. So we will create mortgage and we will put them onto our own land registry. Now, our land registry will only show their mortgages if they can prove the accounts, if they can prove they had the money in the first place. And can they? No, they can't. Right. And of course, any money that we lend, it's interest free. Theirs, by virtue of the fact they charge interest, is fraudulent. We can provide loans interest-free for businesses, for homes, etc., etc. Interest-free, which means it's not fraudulent. And to give you an example, if I created a society and gave each one of you £1,000 and said, right, you can trade this, but you must pay the £1,000 back, we know there's enough in circulation because I've given you all £1,000, right? So there's no shortage of money because you've all had £1,000. You've all got to pay £1,000 back. That money is in circulation. We know that for a fact. But if I ask for £1,000 plus 10%, where are you going to get it from?
fictitious.
It doesn't exist, and it means none of you can actually effectively pay the money. Not all of you can pay the money, right? So the fraud is in interest. So what you've got to do is your community's got to come back to me, the bank, and borrow that 10%. Well, I've got you on a chain now, because how do you pay that 10%? Because that 10% is going to have 10% on that, and that's the spiral. And that's why things go up. That's where inflation comes from.
How would you move somebody's mortgage that exists now off fictiously
Don't move it.
into this system?
There's two things that we can do, and this is down to how we want to play this one. But we would say to the HSBC, we believe that you're claiming there's a mortgage on a land registry somewhere. Well, we have a new land registry, and there are no mortgages registered there, because it's a new, our own land registry. We just duplicate theirs. That's what alternative governance is. You mirror everything they've done, but you do it to your own rules and regulations. According to the members of our group, we do it our way. Because let's face it, we're going to do it for our benefit. They're doing it for their benefit. Okay? Their system doesn't benefit us. Our system will, and so it should. Okay?
What about credit cards?
No. Let me finish through, and then we'll start the questions. Okay? I'm going to explain at the end of it. I'm sure you'll understand the significance, right? So what we have is the potential for actually creating or zeroing out their mortgage, because we will say, prove your mortgage. Or we can play this another way. We simply say to them, we'll acknowledge your mortgage, here's your cheque. With our money. Right? We can do that. Right. As more and more people join our system, the additional liquidity, I'm going to explain something. I want to get down to that, which is why I've just flashed over. As more and more people join our system, the additional liquidity created could cause inflation. It can cause inflation, because if you're handing out money willy-nilly, right, people are going to be having a wonderful time. So there has to be some measure, some controlling factor in there. So the controlling factor is this. We are competing in the same market. So whereas we'll have positive liquidity to buy things, in their system people have to borrow the money. So there's a bit of a restraint. So we're actually becoming more and more competitive, well not competitive, but more and more able to buy commodities. So people say, how is it you can buy all this stuff? And we say, well, because we belong to this system and we get positive liquidity by bringing cash from their system to our system. And they say, well, we want some of that. What do? Simple, go and get your money out of their bank and bring it to our bank. Now what do you think is going to start happening to their banks? All of their cash flow is going to start disappearing, isn't it?
Yeah.
The local fractional reserve.
Yeah, well, they're going to say, where's all the money going? And it's going into our safes. And why is it going to our safes? Because we're giving them something that they're not giving them. So they're going to start getting very, very nervous about the whole thing. But hey, one day they might wake up and say, well, we'll do the same then. We say, well, fine, we'll go home now. Problem solved. So the fractional reserve element to control the amount of liquidity can be reduced from 10, 9, 8, 7, 6 down to 1 to 1. So you bring a pound over, you get a pound. So that's a controlling factor. And if we want to stimulate things, we can increase the transfer of, or increase the fractional reserve element, okay? There's another important point. The fractional reserve element of 10 to 1 will only apply up to the first £100. £100,000, sorry. After that, it will reduce. What? I don't know, we haven't worked that out yet. Down to 9, down to 8, down to 7. So once you're bringing £1 million over, you're only getting 1 for 1. So that has a wealth levelling impact, doesn't it? Yeah. So poorer people are going to get more benefit. The wealthy people are not going to lose out, but what's going to happen is that their wealth is going to be levelled. So what's going to happen is that they're still going to be wealthy people. We're not attacking people. We're not sort of in this to disadvantage people. What we're trying to do is we're trying to level the playing field, because we're all on this treadmill caused by the banking system. The bulk of us are on that treadmill, and if we can improve our lifestyles marginally, right, 5-day week down to 4-day week, we'll all enjoy our lives a lot better, and everyone benefits. So that's the situation where we eventually get parity 1 to 1. So a millionaire bringing his money from that system to our system will benefit for the first £1 million, for example. Now, you're going to say, well, why would he do that? Well, I'm telling you why he'll do that, because his system's collapsing, because we're causing it to collapse. And he's going to say, we're going to keep my money here and lose a lot, or move it over to this system. And I guarantee that they're going to say, well, actually, there's some benefits in this system, because they can borrow our money from our system at zero interest rate as well. So why would they want to stay with that system? This will bring about a marginal levelling of wealth, which I've just explained. The one at the bottom we'll not be able to see, but this is an important one. When we have reached a critical mass of members, we will issue £250,000 to each person for a mortgage, for a new home, or to pay off an existing mortgage, right? So that's the option available to us. Now, if you start handing over £250,000 to everybody, if they were to go and buy existing properties, we'd get massive inflation. But the initial criteria is it's only for new homes. So we will give people £250,000, we will give them that free liquidity to go and buy a house. So young people who said they can't buy homes, can't afford them, will be able to afford new homes. Now, because they're new homes and we're increasing the number of homes in the marketplace, right, what's going to happen to the price of property? It's going to go down, okay? So buy to let, people are going to want to be selling their homes, yeah? And people who are renting homes are going to want to move out. And so the whole business about buying homes for people to rent from you is out the window. So people are going to start putting their money into positive, productive businesses and manufacturing. So we're going to need businesses, aren't we? To actually, people are going to have money, they can't invest in buy-to-let properties or for any properties whatsoever. Commercial properties certainly, but not homes, because everyone's going to have their own home. Not only are they going to have their own homes, but there's going to be no mortgage on them. So our individual liquidity is going to improve. And as I've just demonstrated, it will not cause inflation, because it's a big issue that people say if you start creating your own money supply and handing it out willy-nilly, you'll cause inflation. That's why there has to be some element of control, and the control mechanism is to actually give the money to people to buy new homes. New homes will bring the price of properties down, and anybody who actually has an existing mortgage with an existing company, buy to let for example, we simply give them the credit to pay off the banks, right? So they're not going to be left in the poo. So it solves all problems, but what we're trying to suggest is the whole idea of investing in property that costs other people, that's fundamental. Everyone is entitled to a home, and we should provide the provision, and that's what this does. Oh, right, well I'm not sure what's happened there. It's on strike. Right, okay, that's what went on there, but people who already have mortgages will be compensated in other means. There's a million and one ways to do that. Everybody benefits from this system. Everybody benefits. There are no losers except the banks, right? What will effectively happen is the banks will be strangled because our system will just take it over. When we control the banks, we control everything, yeah? And bear in mind, it's our system is owned by the people, for the people. It's not controlled by me. It's not controlled by anybody in this room. It's not controlled by anyone anywhere. The whole system is controlled from the bottom up. It's a case of what the people want, the people get. Okay? So TAMS is in effect replacing a debt-based economy, because bear this in mind, this is a very important part of the mechanism. When you go into the bank and when you put your deposit down, they create debt. They lend it to somebody. Their whole system is a debt-based system. Our system is a positive liquidity system. It's built on real money because it provides for trade, but it's based on the principle that if you bring cash to our banking system, That is the lifeblood of the system because it gives it credibility, it's exchangeable with their currency, and it allows us to actually do business with our own money, our own system. There will be no PAYE or personal taxation at all, ever. It's not required. Again, that's a control mechanism. So if you earn £15,000 from your employer, you take £15,000 home, right? If you think about the tax system at the moment, it's completely ludicrous. We've got hundreds of thousands of people running a tax system. We've got accountants, we've got employees employing account skills, and it's a complete nightmare. And it's not producing anything. It's a nightmare. It's completely stupid. But they run it because it's a control thing. If they can't tax you personally, they don't control you personally. So our system, there's no PAYE. All taxes that the system requires, all taxes that the community requires, is land-based. Everything needs land to work on, and if the land is productive, it's taxed at the land. So if you've got a nice big area of land that would be ideal for a manufacturing plant or whatever, and you're not doing anything with it, we tax you. And if you're happy paying the tax, that's fine. But if you don't pay the taxes, you lose your property. So the incentive is to use unused land. If you can't use it, sell it. And people want to buy it, we can provide them with interest-free mortgages. So if you come up with a business plan, we can provide your business with interest-free loans, subject to a debenture. Now, a debenture is a mortgage on a business, as opposed to a mortgage on a property. It's a mortgage on a business. The criteria for running a business is that if you don't pay back the loan, right, then potentially the debenture, through the debenture, the business will be taken from you and be given to somebody who can run it properly. So we don't want to close the business down. We don't want to lose out. So if you're not meeting the criteria, we use a debenture to take the business from you and give it to someone who can use it, and therefore the land and the manufacturing plant is used effectively. Okay? So no PAYE, no personal tax, all taxes from the land usage, various different industries. Some will be very profitable, so they'll be taxed accordingly. Farmland will be tax-free because it's food. The issue as to whether you tax roads and that sort of thing is up for debate. But as you probably realise that the idea of all product, all wealth comes from the land anyway. There's not a single business that pays somebody that doesn't actually have some form of land. Whether it's an internet business, they've still got a warehouse somewhere, okay? So all profit is actually drawn from the land usage, and if you think about it, going back a million years, well, not that far, but that's just how the tax system used to work. The Lord used to sort of rake in the taxes from the people through the food and potatoes and so on and so forth. So it's a perfectly well exercised concept. Okay, the conclusion. TAMS demonstrate there is no requirement to make people redundant or to increase taxes to get out of our current man-made financial crisis. The solution is easy: change the system. Right? We need only to move to an alternative money system, leaving the international banking cartel to sort out their own mess. It is, after all, of their own making, and it deliberately so. It was created to serve their own end of putting us on their debt tax treadmill. That's what it's all about. I think most of us understand that. It is time we change things to benefit us at their expense and not them at ours. It's time for the politician to realise that the banking scam is now fully exposed. They can't go on denying it. They're still denying it, but they can't go on. As more and more of us recognise what's really happening out there, more and more of us saying, I'm not going to vote for you because you're a liar, you're a deceiver. And the bottom line is when people see the alternative, and this is the most important part of this whole business, is we now expose the lie by saying, this is how a system could work. And most of you in this room, if you've absorbed just part of what I've said tonight, you'll be saying, actually, that makes sense. And I promise you, it's real stuff, it's genuine. There's no magic carpets here. This is how a system does work, this is how their system works. The difference between our system and their system is their system, they feed the greedy bankers. In our system, we get the benefits. There is some irony in the fact that David Cameron is calling for big society, right? You can't get bigger than your own banking system, can you? Yeah? Right. So he's calling for more people power, and that's exactly what we are suggesting, but in a way he never imagined possible. Who's Cameron work for? He works for the bankers. We know that. And all of a sudden he's suggesting that we should take on big society. We're going to do that, Mr. Cameron. We're going to create our own bank. You report to your bosses. You started, we're finishing it off, right? So Cameron is about to be hoisting on his own petard. As a servant of the banking cartel, there is no way he can endorse an alternative banking system. There is no way he can do that. And we're going to say, Mr. Cameron, why not? You said big society. We've taken up the challenge. What's the problem? Is there anything to do with the fact that you're lying? Is there anything to do with the fact that this phony, this big society, is just a lie? We think so. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the finish. So if Cameron dares to oppose what we are doing, if he dares to oppose an alternative banking system, we'll tell him this big society is just a big scam. Okay? If you want to join up to TAMS, you can do so via the Lawful Bank. It's lawfulbank.com. We hope everyone will join. And of course, once again, I urge people, anyone who's not a member of the British Constitution Group, please join up, because we need those numbers. That's how we encourage other people to get on board. That's how we get the word around. That's how we organise these meetings and so on and so forth. Any questions?
How many people is in the British Constitution?
Yeah,
We never talk numbers. We never expose our strengths or our weaknesses, and it's been the policy. We don't tell anybody. Okay.
would you need quite a lot of people to really get it going?
Yeah,
And how
I mean,
much would you suggest
the-
people put in to start with?
Right. We don't need any money. That's the beauty about it.
Yeah.
At some point in time, when we've got our critical mass, right, we will go out to the community, and we'll make sure we've all our pledges in place, and we're going to ask for everyone to commit £10 only.
Yeah, that's
That
very-
£10 will be managed by the committee, which won't be me.
Would we have a list of people, places where we could go to invest this money?
Yeah, what we're going to do is we're now looking at people to come forward and offer themselves as a bank, as a branch, okay? And we're looking for 6 people to say, I want to run a branch in Wallasey. And we'll say, okay, here's the criteria. That's work in progress. It's not going to happen overnight. That's working with someone in Newcastle.
Takes time.
We have in place at the moment, we have the cards, we have the card readers, we have the system. So I've actually got a terminal in my house. It's possible for us to transfer money from my house to our office in Plymouth. We can do that right now, okay? And I've got a card, not here at home actually, and a swipe, and I can actually swipe and transfer money out of or into that account. I
So
can
the
do that
more
right now.
people that put invest, the quicker it'll get going.
No.
No.
No. That's the beauty about it. We don't need investment. We need people, because that's all we need.
Fine.
Now, the people that we need have to have a resource. We need to cover all of the resources. So, for example, if in Wallasey I need a lawnmower fixed, I need it in the system. If in Wallasey I need my car fixed, I need it in the system. If in Wallasey I need to buy a sweater, I need it in the system. If I need food, it needs to be in the system. If I need bricklayer, it needs to be in the system. That's the critical mass. Once we've got all those resources, once I know in Wallasey and in Stroud or in Newcastle, once I've got those systems, all of those provisions in place, it works. That's what the critical mass is all about. Even when we've got half of them in place, it will work. Even when we've got a third of them in place, it will work. But it will work at a third of its maximum capacity. So with a third of the resources available to us, we will still have to use their system. With a half, we will still have to use their system. But as more and more people join us, right, we'll get the resources. So what we're doing is we're building up a database of the resources, and online, you'll be able to go to our system, and there'll be a shopping centre there, and you'll be able to say, right, I need my lawnmower fixed, postcode, there's your lawnmower man. So we are encouraging you, and in fact, it's essential that you go and use a lawnmower man within the system, and you pay him within our system, because when you're doing that, that's how it works.
Cash flow.
Roger, would the system have actual its own printed currency?
Mm.
And are you thinking of paper and linen notes or
Yeah.
coins as well? Or
Not coins, we will use
too
their coins.
expensive? Yeah.
One of the things we're doing is we're going to design our own currency, 5, 10, 20 pound notes, right? Forge proof, as good as they get, it's going to cost money. We think we'll get investors to actually produce that for us, and we think we'll pay them a nominal fee. So if a £20 note costs us 3 pence, we will pay them 6 pence. And I haven't explained here, I've actually done it elsewhere, but it is part of the revenue streams. Of course, all businesses, the bank is a business, we're not daft, we know it needs revenue, so every time you buy and sell within the system, you pay 0.25%. So we deposit money, take money out, blah, blah, blah. So the profits of the system come out of the money that's circulating. So for £1,000, right, if you deposit or draw out £1,000, you pay a commission of £2.50. That's what pays for the system. That's what pays for TAMS, right? So it's not expensive. It's very cheap, but that pays rather than paying fees and fixed penalty fines, all this rubbish. Okay, so the system is self-funding. That's the point I'm trying to make there. You made one other point, other currency. So because the system is self-funding, it will be able to pay for its banknotes. Bear in mind also that we're only proposing to have 10% of the digital, 10% of the money supply is going to be in notes. Now, the other thing you should know is that the cash available to you, for example, if you put £1,000 in our system, what is available to you is £1,000 cash at any time. So you put it in, you can take it out. But if you then spend, that £1,000 is going to give you £10,000 worth of credit. If you spend £5,000 of that credit, then your cash available to you is halved. So you now only have £500 cash, okay? Does that make sense? So the ratio of 10 to 1 is always there. So when you've spent £10,000, as a consequence of the £1,000 that you put in, you got £10,000 digital credit. If you spend that, all your cash is gone as well. So there's always that relationship 10 to 1. So if somebody digitally pays you £1,000, you can go and draw £100 cash out of the bank. Now, traditionally, what we recognise is only 3% of money in circulation is actually cash. In our system, it's 10%, so ours is a more secure system from that point of view. There is another mechanism here, which is very important, is that if our system has got 1 million members, what we're doing will have no impact on the overall pricing structure at all. But when we've got 5 million members, we're going to have a massive impact on what's going on. Yeah. And this is where that's where the fractional reserve elements are going to reduce. Eventually we will reach parity, but by the time we're at parity, then we're controlling the system anyway.
You're paying about 20% VAT, aren't you, now as well?
No VAT, not necessarily.
But not in your way,
no.
But as we are now.
Yeah. VAT, I think all the issues about taxation, all the rest of it is yeah. We don't need VAT. Again, it's a control thing.
Yeah, I see that.
Yeah.
What about travelling abroad, Roger?
Okay, our system can be adopted by other people. You're going to need their currency abroad, and at some point in time we will be able to do international exchange rates. You've got to remember something as well, we do have their money in our safe, right? Because we're exchanging it. So we do
We're still reliant upon their system then?
Okay?
Still reliant upon their system?
Up until the point where they overseas have their own system. So, you know, whether it's going to be 3, 5, 10...
It's pretty ingrained their system though, isn't it?
Oh yeah, it's been around for...
They're not going to just roll over, are they?
No, of course not,
You know.
But we know that.
Yeah. And what things have we got in place to kind of back people up?
The only thing that we have are people.
Yeah.
Right. The only thing that we need is people. The point that I make is that we need more people.
It's going to come to a stage though where there's conflict, isn't it? You know, where, you know, if you don't respond to their summons or their courts because we're trying to get this process up and running, and they send you these and you're ignoring them, and then they're sending police round, and you know, there's stress attached to it, isn't it?
We have our own peace officers.
Yeah.
We have our own bailiffs, right? We have our own judiciary. We have our own courts. Yeah. Right? We can issue fines to them the same way they do to us. And there's going to come a point in time they're going to say, I'm not going to do this anymore because they keep knocking on my bloody door. Yeah. We will knock on the bailiff's door the same way they knock on our doors. They do to us, we do to them, right? They wear us down, we wear them down. And you know, people have got to get used to we make our own authority. You create your own authority. You know, and as you know, Paul, when you go for bailiffs, they're not very happy. They tend to sort of want to bugger off quickly. And that's the whole.
There's no support structure. I can't see any support structure when people go into courts. We've had, you know, you come along to that one with me, and I went along there, and they were waiting for me there, so I changed tact on it.
Yeah.
You know, so there is no real support structure there. You know, once you get into their jurisdiction,
it's coming. Look, Rome was not built in a day. We're battling a system that's been now there for 1,000 years and a little bit longer.
Exactly.
You know, we're not going to do this in 5 minutes' time. We start by building on numbers. This is numbers, numbers, numbers. It always has been, it always will be. When we have got 1 million people signed up, they will not be knocking on my door, I can promise you. They won't be knocking on your door, they won't be knocking on your door, they won't be clamping your wife's car, they won't be clamping my wife's car, because we'll be coming down, because that's against our law. You can't clamp our cars, go away. You clamp our cars, we'll be knocking on your door. Okay? What they're doing is unlawful.
of course,
They're getting away
It's just
from
that they've brainwashed a lot of people, haven't they?
Of course they have, and this, you know, I've been doing this for a long time now, and I've had all these negatives, you know, time and time again.
But that's the reality of it, isn't it? That's
It
what
is.
people are saying first hand. It's not a negative, Roger. It's the reality of things.
But it will change. As I said at the very beginning, it's not an action, it's a process, okay? The reason you're all sitting here tonight is because you want to see change. The reason that you're listening to what I've got to say is because you believe that we need to have something different. And I don't know, people I talk to, I don't know anyone who says, oh, this system's lovely, I think it's great. I mean, people are comfortable in their cars, they're comfortable in their houses, they're comfortable in their jobs, and at the moment, the vast majority of people think it's okay. You wait until the carbon tax flats on the doorstep. They're going to say, Jesus Christ, where's this come from? I said, well, you know, do you not know anything about New World Order? Do you not know anything about the United Nations? Do you not know anything about Agenda 21? Has anyone told you about Codex Alimentarius? And they're going to say, no.
That's the problem, isn't it? You know?
But it won't be the problem because people are starting to wake up now. I can promise you, next year, people will be saying to you, have you heard about Codex Alimentarius? And you say, yeah. Oh, how did you know? Have you heard about Agenda 21? People are starting to wake up now. People are going on the internet. That's why they're starting to bring in these controls. These riots in London and around the country, right, the first thing they picked up on is the reason these kids were rioting is because Twitter and Facebook.
Shut them down.
What's the agenda? Close them down. That's exactly what they're trying to do because they did not anticipate the power of the internet. So we've now got networks all over the country. That's exactly what it's all about. So when any of this stuff kicks off, you know, you think about this. A gangster in London got shot by the police, and the whole bloody nation's in riots. Something a bit suspicious
Yeah,
there.
but he beat up a 16-year-old girl as well, didn't he?
What do they do?
He beat up a 16-year-old girl who
The police are
them.
being trained to do that. The police are being trained to be
It's on
aggressive.
video as well. And plus you've got all those, like the Black Box Brigade in America,
Yeah.
I don't know what you call them in the UK, but there's videos of them in with the CID instigating the riots again.
NLP, that's exactly what's
NLP.
happening. Exactly what's happening now. And the police are getting more and more aggressive, and they don't get it yet. So we're working on the police. We're starting to talk to the police. We're going to court in the likes of Hereford. We were in Hereford last week, and we're getting a good response. I mean, we're talking to solicitors, council solicitors, and we're saying, by the way, what's superior, common law or statute? Look, I'm saying, and
I think we are living in a police state, aren't we?
We are, it's here right now, and the thing is we have to break it down. And you remember this also, that the police would very much like £250,000 for a mortgage, just as much as you and I. Okay, so they're just as much in it as we are. So they're going to start saying, well, how can you do that? Why are you doing that? How do you, oh, money?
We win them over.
Yeah. So we'll win them over, that's it.
Can I just ask you, is this, with the currency in the bank and that, has this ever been done anywhere in the world before?
Interest-free banking is available in Switzerland. It's got a bank called JAK.
Well, what I'm thinking of is, you might laugh, but in a certain region of Somalia, northern Somalia, I saw that on the telephone, they've actually printed their own money, taking it on themselves to create their own.
Okay, they've done it
exactly how you just described it. They've done it.
What they don't do is they don't do fractional reserve banking. That's the trick. You see, creating money out of nothing is only doable providing you've got resource. Yeah? So, as I said before, the whole point about a community having all the resources it needs is you can print the money. That's not a problem. If that community then needs to buy assets outside the community, it needs wealth. It needs wealth that's recognised by the committee outside, and that's the issue. And by you creating your own wealth and your community benefiting, people outside are going to say, well, we want some of that. We said, that's all right. In our case, the community is our banking community, our own monetary system community. So it's not a location, it's more to do with a system as opposed to a location. So creating your own money it's been done 1,000 times before. It's been done in Lewis in the UK. There's about the transitional towns are starting to do it now. But it's not about the currency, it's the system that's the key. It's about being able to transfer digital money from A to B and to create it out of nothing and be able to buy an asset from that money that you create out of nothing. But you have to justify it. And the only way you can justify it is by having all the resources in the system. There's another point that I mentioned now which is also very interesting, is the idea we're exploring at the moment is a universal wage. Yeah? So for example, everybody will get £400 a month. Everybody. Yeah? We'll just put in your bank account every month. No dole, no disability benefits, although if you have a genuine disability, local people will provide. They'll know the real people. They'll know the scam merchants. What was it? Disability benefits went up tenfold or something, some extraordinary amount. Do you know why they do that? Do you know why they hand out the money? Eh? A dependent state, exactly. What they want is, do you need anything for your local community? We'll lend you the money. Do you have this? We'll lend you the money. Blind people, we'll lend you the money. So we should support our people, obviously, who have a disadvantage, but what they've done is the more they can lend, the more control they have. So they want the councils in debt, they want governments in debt, they want the schools in debt, they want the institutions in debt. The more debt, the bankers love it, okay? So our system wipes it out.
So they'll fall, all the banks will fall.
All the banks will, well, they'll disappear.
Yeah,
I mean, I say to anybody, if you want to stay with their banking system, you're welcome to it.
Yeah.
We're offering an alternative.
Yeah.
We're not trying to close their system down. If their system is good and viable and you know, justifiable, it will thrive. It will prosper. But if ours is better, guess what?
You've got two wobbly banks now, and I know that for a fact because my daughter's a bank manager.
See you later.
So
All right, guys.
they
Thanks,
are
mate. See you later.
going to go, aren't they?
Well, Roger, I've got three things. What's a sovereign note back to? What's it worth? In response to the rest of the world. And within our framework of the credit, what's the price mechanism system for it? How does it all get priced about?
Prices are determined by the market. So that's the whole market. Our community has its own money. The value of our currency is 1 to 1. So our sovereign pound is worth their sovereign pound. Because we traded at 20 for 20, haven't we? Okay. So the credibility of our system is established by the virtue of the fact that we take 20 from them, we retire their 20, we produce 20. So the money that's circulating around us, the retailers. Look, I'll walk into a retailer and say, there's 20 of my sovereign pounds. I've never seen one of those. Well, what's that worth? That's worth 20 quid.
I can't get a shop even to accept a Scottish pound as offering, let alone a sovereign note.
Yeah.
And how many Scottish people are there? There's millions of them.
How many people go to Scotland and get interest-free loan?
Yeah, but it's the jog blow on the street, man. That's
Yeah,
the
but that-
shopkeeper,
again,
like
again,
Woolworths,
again,
Asda,
that's
they're
not-
not going to be accepting these now because they're all in cahoots.
They're going to say, where does this note come
They
from?
will.
They're going to say it comes from the Lawful Bank. Have you not heard of the Lawful Bank? No. Well, you want to read this leaflet. All right, we'll read that. Oh, interest-free money, 250 quid for a mortgage after a critical mass has been reached. Tell me more, tell me more. You know, what I'm trying to suggest to you is that we're at point zero on this whole campaign. If you guys understand that once we've got critical mass, it works. It just happens. You don't have to persuade 60 million people. You only have to persuade a certain number of people before we actually have that critical mass. So our job is to accept the fact that it will work when that critical mass is reached, and just get on with it. Tell people about it. Let's get on with it. That there is not a single negative that you can throw at me that I can't answer when we've got our critical mass, right? Trust me.
What about when it all goes bust and the pound's worth nothing? What will our money be worth?
Well, ours will be worth more because ours is a positive liquidity system. It's not debt-based.
But it's backed by that though.
No, it's not. No, it's not backed by that. It has equality with that. It's not backed by that. The point, this is going to happen, I promise you, this is going to happen, right? If you imagine our currency is going round there and their system is debt-based and people can't pay their debts, what happens? Their system collapses. So their currency becomes worth nothing. But our currency, which is in the marketplace, with our system, which is a positive liquidity, right, will be accepted because nobody owes any money. Get it?
I do get it, but it only still works in the framework. So if you haven't got the supermarkets involved and you haven't got the big corporations involved, then it won't work, will it?
Not a bad thing.
What happens is, this again, the point is the corporations,
Yeah.
Support the small shops.
Yeah.
The small shops will go for it and stuff, but there's certain things that they can't provide.
Such as
That's
They've closed every little other
Yeah,
little
but
shop
exactly,
down.
it's all gone. We're forced to go to Walmart, we're forced to go to Asda.
there is this
I don't
there's
either.
enough little shops to
there is this issue.
Support the little shop,
The
even if you pay more.
supermarkets are a crucial
change the
element
habits.
in
Yeah,
the whole
they would.
thing.
I
Now,
guess
one of the
so.
things we're doing at Bodmin at the moment is growing our own food.
Yeah.
We encourage that. If you can feed yourself, and if it hits the fan, okay, there is an element here that we're suggesting that people need to start looking at their own provision, okay? Now, I don't want to sit here tonight talking about money and talking about food supply. That's another conversation for another day. But we've got to get used to the idea of self-sufficiency. If we're going to have an alternative system, we need an alternative system. And it does also mean our own food. Where do you think the supermarkets get their food from? Ordinary businesses, small businesses. Where do those businesses borrow the money from? From the banks. Do you think they like the banks? No, they bloody well don't. Do you think they would like our system? They bloody well will. We're going to turn around to those food suppliers and say, well, tell you what, how about you supply our guys through small, it's profitable for you. And also, you don't pay taxes in our system. Whoa, bring it on, bring it on. They know they're in a nightmare situation. They know they're paying taxes. They know they're being squeezed to the wall. They know they're paying mortgages. They know the system stinks and doesn't work. So we're saying, here's an alternative. Does it happen overnight? No, it doesn't. Is it a process? Yes, it is. Do we need to be positive? Yes, we do. Do we need to talk about it in a positive way? Yes, we do. We need to actually build the whole thing on this is doable, and we take it to the next level, stage by stage. We can do this.
Could small business, sorry,
Well-
someone else put their hands up when I spoke.
Yeah.
If we're going away to sell this idea to people, yeah, or what provisions have we got now in place if somebody was to ask me, or if somebody was coming to me and saying, listen, have you heard about this TAMS? I would say, well, what bank are you in? So is there provisions now for us to be able to jump ship from the system we're in now over
No.
to TAMS?
Okay. What we're asking you to do now is to join. There is only one branch or one bank system at the moment that actually will operate TAMS, and it's called the Lawful Bank. So we need people to sign up to the Lawful Bank. So we build that membership, and we will feed information to you guys so you can tell other people. So they can go to the Lawful Bank and they read through it and say, oh, all right, well that makes sense. What does it cost? It doesn't cost anything. It's all about names, it's all bums on seats, okay? So at some point in the future, you're going to get an email from us saying, we've now got our first provision within the banking system. We can now offer you bonded insurance. And I've explained briefly what bonded insurance is. And we're hoping people will say, okay, well that makes sense, I'm in for the bonded insurance. That gives our footprint into the business world, okay? On the back of that, we're going to start looking at certain points in time, how many people we've actually got in the certain industries that we require, and we'll start encouraging people to come on board in certain industries. At some point, we're going to have all the resources that we need to operate effectively up to 30, 40, 50, whatever the figure is. We know that we'll operate the bank, and we'll launch it. And we will then we'll be able to offer transfer of money from A to B. So for example, you'll be able to send, assuming that you've got a child or a brother or sister in Southampton, and you want to send them money, we will be able to offer that facility. So we'll start to offer facilities in stages. We won't become a fully fledged bank offering mortgages until we reach that critical mass. At some point in time, somebody's going to say, we've got enough to do this, and we're going to offer mortgages. Now you're going to go down the road and knock on someone's door and say, I want to buy your house for £250,000. I've got a mortgage in place right now, but you can only deposit the money in the Lawful Bank, or whichever branch you're working with. And the buyer's going to say, well, why would I do that? Because I don't have it, I'm with Halifax. And you will say, well, if you do, you can actually borrow money interest-free as well, and buy your house. In the same way you're accepting my deal, someone will accept your deal. We know this to be the case because we've got X number of members out there. Now the home buyer in particular is going to be saying, right, what's in it for me? And we'll say, well, have you heard about the mortgage cancellation scheme? If you've got a mortgage with Halifax, right, our lawyers will argue that it's unlawful. So you join our bank, we'll argue the possible. Now they're going to say, well, there's a lot of incentive here, let's give it a go. So we're hoping that the penny starts to drop. Build into that the same issue that we were talking about before, is that big society, big scam, right? We're saying, why can't we create our own alternative banking system? Why don't the politicians back us up? Why won't Cameron come out of the mess and say, yeah, that's a great idea, we'll support it, we'll back it? Because the lie, we're exposing the lie. So people are going to start talking about it, recognising it, and they're going to start doing it. How long will it take? Don't know. Will it take a year, 2 years, 5 years? I have no idea. It will take as long as it takes, but it's doable, and we will get there, because we've got to get there. Because actually, there is no alternative.
Roger,
Yeah.
your own judiciary and the bailiffs and the courts, is that proposed, so how much of that is in existence now? Is that
We're at the point now, we've got, in this region, our own 30 peace officers. These guys have volunteered, and we'll be creating, we put up an advertisement in the paper for more people to come forward. Each and every one of you guys should be volunteering as a peace officer, okay? There's nothing to do at the moment, we just need to build up our names. I need to be able to turn around and say, right, I've got 400 peace officers in the world, okay? And then when a bailiff knocks on any one of our doors, the phone goes, and we need 2 or 3 people to turn up and just to witness what's going on. Now the bailiffs can say, because the bailiffs are lying, the bailiffs are extorting money from people, they're causing all sorts of mayhem, they're breaking the law, and we need these people witnesses. And what we will do is we will take the bailiffs to court. We've got one bailiff at the moment who's being dragged to court, and he's going to get a massive lawsuit. The XL in Colwyn Bay, they don't know what's going to hit them, and I've got a claim against them as well. So we're starting to tap back. And I think the principle I'm trying to expand here is the fact that we've got to start putting our names forward first. When we've got our names on the list, then we start doing small actions. When small actions work, bigger actions work, and when bigger actions work, you take control. So that's the whole process.
How long would it be before people could start exchanging currency for goods between themselves, like small items, say like a small business and
Okay. Again, it's a resource-based argument. When you've got all the resources in your system, you do it then. Okay. We need to determine what resources are that we need. And when we've got all those resources, we can start exchanging. And to say that there's a simple principle, which is it's a critical mass issue. Now, if you ask me when that's going to happen, if you call me, how many people are signed up to Lawful Bank here?
Not sure. Signed up for something.
Okay. So,
I'm in the BCG anyway.
okay, so the point is that sign up to Lawful Bank, the numbers are growing every day, okay? It's going to be exponential because the more people are involved, and you're signing up on the basis that someday you're going to get emails saying, hey guys, bond insurance is available. You're going to sign up to that. That will encourage more people to come in. That's probably going to happen within the next 6 months. Now, bonded insurance will attract thousands of people, and those thousands of people will probably also sign up to the Lawful Bank for the monetary benefits. And at some point, we're going to have a situation where there's a lot of creative little ideas that we're looking at to actually make the Lawful Bank a functioning bank in terms of other ideas to bring in the liquidity, and people start to use it. So your friends and colleagues, you're going to start talking about the Lawful Bank. The first thing they're going to say, well, how do you create money out of nothing? Right? The moment they ask that question, you've got them. Because they're not asking that question at the moment, and that's the question that we want them to start asking. When people start asking, well, that's rubbish, that's a nonsense, right? You think, I've got them, because now they want to know. And you say, well, it's not nonsense, that's what the banks do. And the question I ask people is, where do you think money comes from? Oh, it comes from the banks. Where do the banks get their money from? Well, they get it from depositors. No, they don't. Where do they get it from?
Start with a ledger.
Well, it's all ledger based.
No offence, I work in a bank and within 2,000 people in that place, I know I might be the only person who might understand how money's all created.
Yeah, but next week, there'll be one other guy in there, mate.
Yeah.
And in a month's time, there'll be
No,
4
that's
people.
all on his face, and that's about it, man.
Well, you know,
Up to
in
you.
6 months' time, most people will start
Listen
going
to me, I
that.
talk about fucking chemtrails and stuff, they just, anything I try and say to them now, they just write me off.
Well, there's a management. I mean, I know all this stuff. I get up and I talk about one thing only. I talk about the monetary system. I talk about things that are credible. I don't talk about chemtrails. I don't talk about all this other. I talk about things which people think, that makes sense to me. If somebody says to me, how can you not have PAYE? I can explain that. PAYE is a control system. It's not logical. It's stupid. You know, if you've got a company that's paying an employee money and then take it back from the employee to give it to the government, why pay the first money? Tax the company. And if the company is getting all its resources from somewhere else, well, why tax the company? Tax the resources. And everything comes from land. Everything is based on land. And there's a book by Judd, They've Stolen Our Land. It's a great little book. And it describes where all taxes used to come from. Because taxes are quite logical up to a point. And what you've got is you've got an industry of civil servants who are there running a tax system, which doesn't need to be there, right? So get rid of all of the civil servants, right, and put them out to productive use in manufacturing, and all of a sudden the taxes can go down anyway, because you don't need to pay all the civil servants. If you create a universal wage, right, people don't need to go and steal for their drugs. They can stay home and get their drugs if they want to, right? So that reduces your police force, right? And if these people are going to stay home with their money and use the drugs, they're going to die, so that will reduce your bloody hospital bills, right? That's a joke. Not a good joke. I mean, the thing is, the logical process that we've got to do is we need to approach the whole thing from a different point of view. We need to start looking at what the system is all about. The system is not designed for our benefit. The system is designed to control us. Yeah.
What a lot of people talk about at the moment, because it's undeniable that the system's broken, that it is going to collapse, something mega is going to happen in the economy. And they're talking about bringing gold and silver back, so how would that affect us then?
Gold and silver is a nonsense, because you can't eat it.
Yeah.
Gold and silver is the biggest scam going, because they own it all, right? If we tie into gold and silver, who do you think is controlling? They are, right? Who owns our man hours? We do. So if we pledge a system with our man hours, we control it. And that's the point of the pledge. We are self-bonding and self-guaranteeing. Our system functions because we make it function. And that's the biggest hurdle I'm finding in this whole opposition. I talk to people and I say, this is how the system works, and they say, well, it's not going to work. Not going to work. Why is that then? Because I'm negative. That's why. It won't work because they don't want it to work. If people want it to work, it will work. We've got to really get into the frame, a positive frame of mind, say, we've got to make this work. And we talk to people and say, this is going to happen. We don't know when it's going to happen. And that system is going to collapse because that system is designed to collapse. That system has to collapse because it can't go on. And yet our system can go on because it's got a stable base on which to function.
After the First World War, I was told by a lady that a whole barrel full of Deutschmarks wouldn't have bought you a loaf.
Hyperinflation, yeah. Well, Zimbabwe was the same.
Death like that.
Yeah. It's funny, isn't it? They were talking about 1,000,000% inflation in
Yeah.
Zimbabwe.
I mean, and you can't eat money or gold, can you?
What happened
But you
in
can eat
Zimbabwe
alone.
is a classic example, right? People were getting up in the morning, and it was a wealthy country, and they were going to work, and they were growing the lettuces, and they were doing whatever they were doing, they were going to work. Then all of a sudden, something started to go wrong, right? And yet the same people were there, the same resources were there. What went wrong? What was happening is the credibility, the international credit was being pulled, and as a consequence, they couldn't buy their resources. And this whole resource thing is the secret, is the answer to the problem, is the resources. Now, why do you think the European Union made an instruction that we couldn't supply all of our milk? We used to supply all of our milk. That was a control thing. That was designed so we had to import.
The farmers were only allowed to sell so much milk.
Yeah.
The rest was poured down the drain.
Why did they take over our fish industry? Because we could feed ourselves with fish. So what they want to do is they take our fish from us, so we can't feed ourselves. Why do you think we're now in a situation where the supermarkets carry 3 days of food supply? Again, it's a control thing. Everything they have done is designed to put in place a control mechanism. The one thing they needed an army or a force of people who would work for their benefit to oppress us, and that's why they're working on the police. That's what NLP is all about. They need to get the police in a frame of mind where they actually don't realise what they're doing. And I've come across some very aggressive lady. Why do you think I don't know insult, but women are more compliant than men. You know, they're more industrious and they're more compliant. Not you, I know you're not. I know you're not. I mean, I've come across the rebels in the field, and I know that all the ladies in the... I'm going to get hung now. I'm going to hung.
You go, girls.
Bloody well.
The lady police officers, I've come across them. They don't know what they're talking about. You have an argument about the common law, they just don't want to know. All they want to do is put the handcuffs on.
Yeah.
And there's something that women like about a tall man in handcuffs. Oh, it's a power thing. And I'm not anti-female, I've just had a conversation, a couple of these lady people, they're bloody dangerous, they're bloody dangerous.
Well, I have sent I have sent
the police to use the Lawful Bank.
Well, sorry.
You don't need the police to use the Lawful Bank as well. The police...
Yes.
Yeah, that's right. They say
all these things will be
the
shown
important
to the
thing,
police,
the
anybody knows
important
the
thing,
policemen.
the important thing
Show
is,
it
it
to
is
them.
so vital,
And all
is we've
these
got to keep
practices
these guys on
need to
side.
know about this, don't they?
Okay.
I think that this is an opinion rather than a question. I think that the members or the people that are in this room, if they're to spread the good word about how the people can overcome the perversion, if you like, or the corruption of the existing system, is to address misbegotten dogmas that exist. For an example, if you asked your mother-in-law or your gran, as you said earlier, where does she think the money comes from on her slightly higher interest account, she will say the banks. And she will also say that she just wants to make a little bit of interest on her savings so that she can buy nice presents for the family at Christmas time. Not understanding that, of course, her son-in-law or her daughter or her daughter-in-law, whatever relationship, who are struggling to pay their extortionate mortgage, are struggling to pay her this extra, a little tiny bit extra, and the middlemen, of course, are the guys that take the big chunk. And on these grassroots levels, dogma is so ingrained in people that there's a more, I believe, simplistic approach to point out those things, as you've done this evening. It was news to me that £1 creates effectively a factor, and you're aiming for 10 to 1 before aiming at parity. But in the existing corrupt system, it's any figure, and it could be as much as 80 or 90, as we know.
It's infinity.
And these are the, from an observationary point, because I'm dealing, as you may be aware, I'm dealing with the same thing from a scientific perspective, and it is incredibly surprising that the most intelligent people around you are stuck to an erroneous dogma and will not see the 2 and 2 of it, even though it's palpably 4. And it's because generationally, over years and years and years, they've been ingrained with the ideas that these authorities are for our betterment. And they will reject the idea that these authorities and these powers that be are there simply, usually, possibly there's 1 out of 10, there is a ratio, a friend of mine, I shouldn't say this, but he says 9 out of 10 organisations, no, he said 9 out of 10 people were wankers, and I said, woo, that's too heavy.
Look at me when you said that.
No, I was preempting the insult of it. But he said, but we refined it to 9 out of 10 organisations, which made it more palatable, are wankers. The reason being that the reason that we as a community, we as a social order, set these things up in the first place were to be neutrally assistive, that's to say, to help us without lining their pockets in the way that even if you don't know anybody that's corrupt, the mathematics says there's an awful lot of them that are corrupt, otherwise where's the money going? Yeah. Why are we struggling when the resources we have, and it's because other people get control of them and they dissipate them to their own advantage, leaving the people stuck. And you've got to be very careful in this situation that you don't advocate a kind of communism which will frighten the pants off most people. But we are talking about cooperative action here, and it's these dogmas that are in place that are held by extremely intelligent people that make error progress and allow for corruption, allow for the rip-off that we get. But you've got to also imagine and remember that when you're talking to people about these new, and I must say, great ideas, if critical mass is reached and we can establish a new order, if you like, a different new order, one that
But it's a new order, but it's ours.
but it's ours, and it's governed, and it's designed to assist the people. If we can do that, that will be a great thing. But I warn you all in this room, if you haven't already encountered it, there are J.P. Morgan's a great, his nickname was the devil himself. He was a moneylender of the 1900s. Not just a moneylender, he was a speculative investor, and he did his job very well, but at the expense of all those around him, because obviously his motivation was pure profit. And what we're talking about here is more social motivation. But I warn you all, you will be up against the dogma that says that amongst every one of us is the potential for the J.P. Morgan. And you'll find that out if you play a game of Monopoly at home when you were a kid or with any of your family. One of your family that's one of us will want to own everything. So I'm
Rob,
saying,
okay, thanks for the speech.
that's it, I'll stop.
Okay, all right, thanks very much. It's always tempting to sort of, expound our own views.
But that's what I believe
No,
people will be up against.
I think most people in this room share with what you've just said. But are there any more questions? Okay. So
about public services,
well, again, National Health Service, all the services can be funded through our own banking system. Okay. Now there's this crossover, and there's a lot of fine tuning. There's a lot of stuff that we can't explain. I think it's very important not to get into the finer detail because people will get bogged in the finer detail. If we can get people to understand the simple principles, where does money come from? If somebody says, if you're having a conversation, you say, have you heard about the Lawful Bank? And they say, eventually start saying to you, well, where does money come from? You've got it. I promise you. If they ask that question, you've got them. Because they're starting to ask questions. At the moment, they're all completely, ignorant of the facts. And money, the source of money, is the most important thing that drives our lives. And most of us haven't got a clue what's going on. And more importantly, up until what we're doing at the moment, nobody has had a solution to that problem. We've got a solution to the problem, and the nucleus of the solution to the problem is people, is a number of people. Get the people, we've got this thing boxed off. This is actually not that difficult. It's not that difficult. If you bring me 1 billion people and sit them in a room, big room, we've got it boxed off. We can make it work, and that's what we've got to do. We've got to go out there and we've got to talk positive, think positive, do positive. Let's not have any of this, they're going to do us in, they're going to shoot you, Roger, they're going to... it doesn't work.
Nothing can get any worse than it already is. I think it can only go up.
Exactly. And the interesting thing about this is, once there are enough of us who have the knowledge, they can shoot me, they can shoot you, they can shoot 10 of us, 50, 100, it's too late. The cat is out of the bag. And we've got a situation now where Cameron's got a lot of explaining to do. Mr. Cameron, big society, how about Big Bang? We'll go to that. Why not? He's got a lot of explaining to do.
Roger, sorry.
Right.
I was just going to ask if you're going over to Liverpool side, doing any meetings over there.
I'm travelling all the way at the moment.
Okay.
I'll tell you my problem. My honest problem is this, is that we're doing...
I want to rally a few from Liverpool over.
Do it
the
on there,
side.
on there.
But me, I get a bit confused with myself when I'm starting to talk. I might have had a joint and I might go, and just get it all back to front. At least
You organise it.
And how about if you're in Wales as well?
Well, no, I
You
do.
organise it, I'll come.
I get, okay, I'll see what I can do, but explaining it to people, you've got, like he said, you've got all this dogma that's ingrained into people, and they're happy to wallow in whatever it is they're plodding on through.
Let me ask a question, right?
Yeah?
Does everybody in this room understand the basics of the Lawful Bank? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So although you can't explain it yet, you understand it. That's a big leap forward from 2 years ago. Right? The fact that we're talking about it, I promise you that in 12 months' time you'll be amazed at what people know about banking. I'll be amazed if there's not more people saying fractional reserve banking, that. In fact, some people are going to start getting cocky and telling me about, I have people, do you understand fractional reserve banking, Roger? Well, yeah, quite an you know, and the point is, even people who are in the industry, I had one guy who was in the bank in the city, about banking, and he said, Roger, your idea is never going to work. It's nuts.
Oh, that's what I get told.
3 days later from me, he said, this is genius. Right? He got it, and it took a while for the thinking, because he said, and people have said, fractional reserve banking, Roger, you're mad. It just won't work. That's the problem. I said, no, it's not the problem. It's actually a benefit if we are the beneficiaries of fractional reserve banking. At the moment, it's working against us because of the interest. And when you have the conversation, when you talk to people who will have a conversation with you, and as you said, it's the dogma. You've got to get over the dogma. But you can get over the dogma, and the way to get over the dogma is ask them a question. Ask them to explain their system, and that's when they start faltering. And then if you can explain your system, our system, the system, then it starts to encroach upon their intellect. And people aren't stupid. They may not be fully informed, but they're not stupid. They start to work it out. You organise it in Liverpool, I'll come over. You organise it in Wales, I'll come over. I'll do that. Yeah.
Yeah, anybody can free download these YouTubes, by the way, using YouTube downloader. So if you got YouTube channels, spread them around.
Yeah.
Could I,
It's dead easy, they'll all be encoded, so it'll take you as long as it takes you to watch it and re-upload it to your channels.
thanks.
Spread it around that way.
Yeah, that's good.
Anybody else?
And that goes all over the world to anybody that's got
Ask your question,
YouTube.
Yeah, I've read about Argentinian cooperative money systems.
Well, you know up in Argentina, don't you?
But what I wanted to ask is really, I think you've already answered it, but is it the key is the fractional reserve? Is it? I don't think I've heard of that anywhere else or in any other system, and that would make this system totally different from any other exchange.
We're
Is that
waiving
right?
fractional reserve now.
But I know the present system is based on fractional reserve in the banker's interests, but no system has had fractional reserve in the people's interest. And that there's quite a few.
Argentina did it. Argentina solved its problem by telling the international community to go and run. Okay, and it boomed. Argentina boomed. It was bankrupt. Everything was collapsing, falling. The whole thing was a complete nightmare. And then someone woke up and realised what was going on, and that's how Argentina solved its problem, by creating its own banking system and used fractional reserve banking. Iceland is doing the same at the moment. Okay, Iceland did a very brave thing and told the international banking cartels to take an iceberg and stick it and good on them too. Okay.
Could I just ask a question about what happened to the judge in the Birkenhead court that was that was arrested by the police? What happened to that judge?
Okay.
Have you any idea?
Yeah, there's work in progress. I don't.
Because I wouldn't think that was all in vain.
Oh God, no! Oh no! Listen, I promise you.
Because my son was in that court.
Listen, I promise you. We had a situation just last week where somebody came to us and said, "You'll never guess what." We love these stories, I love it. And they said that whenever this is about Guy Taylor, who's one of our guys, going to Hereford Court. Yeah. Whenever Guy Taylor goes into court, they have a special meeting, right? And this came from the court, and they said of Guy Taylor. And of course, Guy Taylor is using what we're all using. And we're quite methodical, we're doing our homework, doing research, slowly catch a monkey, right? And she said, oh, he's so clever, And this guy responded, he's always been very clever. Oh, no, he's really clever. They have to have a special meeting, and they get all the security, they get all the court officials, they get all the legal advisors round a table to discuss Guy Taylor's cases, right?
But can he all...
Now, let me finish, right? And these meetings are being run by the security because they're scared he's going to arrest a judge.
But can he now...
Let me finish.
I'm naughty.
So the next thing is, now what we're doing is we're working to a strategy. A lot of people are saying, well, you're not doing anything. We can't rush these things. We've got to get our ducks in order, okay? So we're working on something which I'm not going to publish here and now, okay? But I promise you, things are in motion.
Good.
And they're very, very nervous. They're very, very scared of us.
Good. I'm glad about that. Thank you very much.
Okay. Now you are next. Go on.
It's a bit off track, but just looking at the bigger picture. When it comes to the health service, would you be looking at promoting a health service rather than a pharmaceutical money-making service?
Absolutely. Yeah. We should be spending billions on natural remedies, because absolutely, look, I tell you what, the drug businesses it's a big scam. It's an absolute scam. Yeah. So absolutely.
And it's a major,
What I wanted to, if I just could, the point that was making before about the dogma.
Yeah.
As a layman, any layman might not understand the intricacies of this, me including in the beginning trying to get to grips with it. But I've got a mortgage, and if you came to me and said, I can get rid of that mortgage, do you know what? It doesn't matter if I understand it or not.
Exactly. Exactly. Go on.
Have you got an update on Norman Scarf?
Okay. Norman Scarf from Leeds. Some guys are working on it. I can't get involved in everything. People are now expecting me to know everything. I just can't do it all physically. Okay. So with Mal and Norman Scarf, we've got other people working on it. John Hurst was working on Mal. Chris Jarvis was and Rusty were helping with Norman Scarf. Norman Scarf is going to be able to sue that judge, and he's going to go down. Mal's situation is a little bit more difficult, but things will happen for Mal in the future, which again I'm not going to discuss here. The situation with the British Constitution Group and the free man stuff and all the rest of it, there's so much happening, it's just become a massive burden for me. So I've taken myself out of the smaller activities to focus on, this is the solution to the problem. I promise you, this is the solution. I can tell you a lot more what's going on and how it will work, some of the nuances, etc. And it is quite exciting. But look, let's start with the facility to provide a mechanism whereby we can wipe mortgages out of the bank, because they are the problem. And if we create an alternative system in which it's debt-free to all of us, who's not going to join us? Yeah?
Even the police have mortgages.
Exactly. And the only people that will lose out with us creating our alternative system are the bankers, the billionaires. What do you do with £1 billion? How could you, this guy, what was his name? Freddie Goodwin. Okay. And I looked at this thing, so this guy's getting £700,000 a year. He's got a couple of million quid in a pension box, so he's going to have £700,000 a year when he's retired. What do you do with £700,000 a year? Right. I mean, I like my red wine, but I sure as hell couldn't spend £700,000 a year on my red wine. And the bottom line is, it is pure, unnecessary, unadulterated greed. And as a direct consequence of that greed, whilst he's got that money in his bank account, someone somewhere is not actually having a good meal or doesn't have shoes for the family. It's disgusting. It's disgusting. He doesn't need look, he can have a nice car, he can have a nice house, he can go on a nice holiday 10 times a year, and he can enjoy his life without £700,000 a year. The whole thing is distorted, and it's because they need it to feed greed to make the control system work. And all we've got to do is have the conversation and wake up. We're waking up. We're getting there. It's slow. Talking about the dogmas, look, people have been brainwashed. People are still in the comfort zone. Yeah? That comfort zone is cracking. And people are starting to realise that, oh, maybe things aren't quite right. People do have a conscience. We can feed that conscience. But also, the one thing that they did is they fed a system of greed and self-interest. We're going to use that to our benefit. That's what this is all about. We're not daft.
Can I ask a supplementary to that? If anybody's got money, like when the system collapses, which it's going to collapse, just a matter of time.
Well, they need to get over to our system quickly.
Yeah, but when it does collapse, what happens to all the people who've got money? Because the money's not there, is it? Well, the banks are shut, just like the last one did.
Here's the point, okay? When the system collapses overnight, you're going to wake up one morning and say, oh my goodness, who do I pay my mortgage to? And we'll ring and say, don't bother, you don't have to anymore, right? Oh, okay. So what about my job? Don't worry about it, because they're still going to be able to employ you, right? Why is that? Because we've got a system of communicating transfer of assets and resources between us, because we've got our own system. Okay, so I'm going to work. Yeah, you can go to work. Oh, by the way, you don't need to work 5 days a week, you can do 4 days a week. Oh, okay, why is that? Because all those people who are working for the civil service and the inland revenue and the banking system need jobs, and they're going to do your job on the Friday, so you can have an extra day off. Will I lose more money? No, you won't. And you won't have to pay taxes. The whole world can change overnight as long as we start to understand that if we remove the control systems, all we're removing is their benefit and putting in place ours. And it's not that complex. And as I say, the most important thing is the conversation is happening now. People need to stop saying why it won't work and start saying why it will work. If tonight you've identified 2 or 3 reasons why it won't work, push them to the side, because I can promise you that I've got an answer to that problem, and concentrate on the 3 reasons why you know it will work. Okay, it's people power, we take control, it can work for us, all of us.
Constitutional conventions.
Oh, right, okay. I've got 2 constitutional, now this is now changing the subject from money to the constitution. The whole purpose of the British Constitution Group was to take back control of our country, and we would implement policies like our own monetary system. We are having 2 conventions. One is on the 22nd of October and the 5th of November, and one's in Stoke-on-Trent and one is in
Was
London.
there something special about the 5th of November?
I hope they make them better next time.
Doesn't light up any, No. No. Anyway, the point is that we are inviting politicians, judiciary, senior police officers to attend a constitutional convention and invite them to get alongside with the people. Okay. So we're starting to put matches to the fire, as it were. If they won't join us, then they're not of us, and there will be consequences attached. As we get more and more people signed up to British Constitution Group and obviously Lawful Bank, we'll start getting momentum, and we'll start getting, if you like, the message across that this can only go one way. More people join us than probably any other group, and we know that more people are becoming aware, we know that more people are becoming educated, we know that more people understand what's really going on, and we also know that if these guys are left in charge, the shit is going to hit the fan, excuse my language, because we have got a carbon tax coming on our doorstep, and when that arrives, it's a road to hell.
It's already implemented in Australia now, isn't it?
Yeah.
In industry.
Exactly. And people, oh no, it's not. People don't believe these things are going to happen, and when it happens, they say, oh, it's too late now to do anything about it. So I'm not paying my council tax, and as you probably know, that this is a bit of a saga, and it's hilarious. It is absolutely hilarious, because they bankrupt the legal fiction. And then I got a letter from the official receiver and said, you've been made bankrupt. And I said, no, you haven't. And he wrote back, and I said, you bankrupt the legal fiction. I wrote to him saying, you bankrupt the legal fiction, which is not me, so, what's that got to do with me? And he wrote back and said, there is no such thing in fact or in law. So I sent him a copy of a law dictionary with the definition of legal fiction in there. I said, this is legal fiction, it's a fact in law, therefore you're wrong and I'm right. And no, I won't answer your questions. He wrote back saying, you get in here on Friday at 9:30 for a meeting, blah, 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 blah. I said, more than happy to do so. I'll come in with an advocate, I'll come in with a recording, and I'll come with my questions. We're all equal in the eyes of the law. You answer my questions, and I'll answer yours. Haven't heard from them since. Yeah. So the fear factor is complete nonsense. If you stand up to these people, they know what to do.
I'm in the process, Roger, of actually trying to make myself a freeman of the land, yeah, and I'm just getting all my paperwork together. Now, it's a two-folded question. One, the first part is, how do you become a peace officer to the organisation? And equally, if we do come into trouble ourselves, is there a pool of people that can come and witness and advise?
Okay. Are you a member of the British Constitution Group?
I'm in the process of...
Okay, sign up, put your name forward to me as a local peace officer. I hope everyone will do that, okay? There is no mechanism in the place to resource peace officers. I'm hoping you guys will do that for me, okay? So I don't want to run anything. I just want to put the ideas out there, and I want you guys to start to take control, because we've got Simon and Paul, we've got 30 peace officers here, and these guys are part of the mechanism, and somewhere down the line, at some point in time, they're going to start doing themselves. Now, when we've had bailiffs at the door, my neighbour helped me, the last guy out there, and the way they behave is outrageous. It's criminal, right? And we've got something happening on the if you like, on the broader scale with the local bailiff's office. What they're doing is wrong. It's absolutely wrong. So we want to close them down. We want to make an example of the bailiff company. But we're not going to be irresponsible about this. We have to accept that we do have responsibility. So that, again, is a process that's happening. What you should do is, in conjunction with your friends, is agree to act as two peace officers. The first principle is to record and witness anything goes on. If you communicate with us, we will then get names to you, and if you ever have a bailiff knock on your door, you need to make a phone call and get 2 or 3 people around. Don't do anything, just observe them. As our numbers grow, right, if the bailiff knocks on your door, there should be 10 of you there, and at which point you'll be inviting the bailiff to go away, okay? But also you'll be issuing him with a summons to appear in our court, because we do have now Common Law Courts of England. We've got the Wirral branch. They're not active, we just put the stones down. So do the bit, put your name forward, talk to your colleagues, your friends, act as peace officers, communicate with these other guys. We'll have a meeting here, peace officer meeting. We are training people in Bodenham now, okay? So if you haven't been to Bodenham, again, that's going to happen over the next few months. In Bodenham, it's in Hereford, it's going to be headquarters for British Constitution Group and for Lawful Rebellion. We're hoping to have 200 or 300 people coming through a week being taught about the banking, about the Constitution, and that knowledge base is the stuff that we're starting to talk about in the pubs. We originally suggested people adopt a pub, a local pub, and have a meeting every month, and it's starting to happen. It takes a long time to get these things rolling, you know, but it's definitely happening. There's lots of regular meetings. It's very positive out there, it's very, very good, but we're still just a small minority of people. That is growing, and it will continue to grow.
I think it's going to grow a lot quicker, because this recession hasn't even kicked in yet, has it?
I think you're right. It's going to happen a lot. The exponential factors are going to creep in, and you know, I have no idea how long this is going to take. All I know is it's going to happen, and I just hope it doesn't take as long as because I need a long holiday. So you know, so you guys can do a lot. You guys can do. Are you in Wallasey or whereabouts? Birkenhead. Okay. So there's a group out there. There's a group in New Brighton. If there's 2 or 3 people, make an important connection. And we've got a group in Widnes. We've got a group in Warrington. And we normally have a witness contingent here. But, you know. Yeah. Okay. And in Liverpool, there's a contingent there. North Wales, a contingent
Wrexham.
there. Yeah, Wrexham. So there's a broad contingent that come together at times in different areas. I go over to Widnes from time to time, and I go to Manchester and certainly Hereford and down to Plymouth. And I can tell you that every time I go down, there's new faces, different people, and they're coming in at a different level as well. So that's our problem, is getting... The idea of Bodenham is to actually have a series of lectures on specific issues, and on commercial liens, for example. If you've not heard about commercial liens, they're a very powerful tool. This is where the judges are important, is serving judges with commercial liens. That's their insurance, and that means they risk losing their homes. We're going to serve judges with commercial liens. I'm hoping to serve a couple of magistrates on Tuesday next week with some commercial liens. And the proposition I'm putting to the magistrate is that if you find for a liability order against me, right, on the basis of these documents which are fraudulent, I'm going to serve each and every one of you with commercial lien. I'm coming after your property because you are encouraging corruption in our courts. And these should be common law courts, and these are administrative courts, and you are helping to keep the oppression on the people, and you have got to suffer as a consequence. I hope that the magistrates will prove their pants. They should do, because I'm serious. Okay. Now this doesn't happen overnight. This is a process that we're going through, and as I say, these judges, they're breaking the law. They're arrogant. They are scamming us for our money. Right? They're making us work to keep them in luxuries and in goods, and that's the bottom line here. And it's the process that we're going through now, which is going to start putting them back. In Hereford, one of the judges, that guy said, I'm going to arrest you. And then we went down there to a court hearing, and he was supposed to attend. He's retired. They're very nervous. They're definitely sitting there and taking notes. Right, any more questions? Good, bar time. Right, thank you.